Billionaire's 100M challenge exposed. Maid's daughter's incredible win left him heartbroken. The crowd was electrified. Cameras flashed like wildfire as billionaire Richard Hawthorne announced the audacious challenge that had sent shockwaves through the world. For Maria, a hard-working single mother, hope flickered like a candle in the dark. Her 17-year-old daughter, Sofia, stood by her side, eyes shining with determination. Maria's calloused hands, worn from years of scrubbing floors and folding laundry, clenched tight with every word that fell from the billionaire's lips. This could be their chance at a brighter future. Sofia, little more than a girl with big dreams, had always idolized her mother. Maria was the embodiment of grit and resilience, battling against the tides of life to build a better world for her daughter. Sofia remembered late nights studying anatomy, poring over dog-eared textbooks while her mother worked multiple shifts. "You could be a veterinarian, Mija. I believe in you," Maria would whisper as she kissed Sofia goodnight. These words were the rocket fuel that propelled Sofia's ambition. Yet as Sofia stepped into the competitive arena, she faced immediate struggles. Surrounded by the elite contestants, whose names were synonymous with privilege, she felt their disdain like ice. What could a Maid's daughter possibly know? They sneered, price tags and designer labels their armor. But Sofia pushed back the pain. Inside, her spirit ignited. "I'm here to show everyone that hard work beats privilege any day." As the challenges escalated, viewers were captivated by Sofia's fierce dedication. With each trial, she showcased a talent and tenacity that caught even the billionaire's eye. Yet, behind the scenes, strife brewed. Maria's job was cut after a misunderstanding, leaving them teetering on the edge of despair. "What'll we do, Mommy?" Sofia's voice trembled, her heart heavy with worry. Maria, tears shimmering in her eyes, pulled Sofia close. "We'll get through this. We always have." Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The pivotal round approached. Sofia stood before the audience, a storm brewing inside her. She faced a choice that could turn her life upside down. In a moment of raw vulnerability, the ethos of her upbringing battled against the glittering allure of success. Should she compromise her values for a shortcut to victory? The stakes were higher than ever. Tension mounted as the billionaire, cold and calculating, watched closely. A smirk of arrogance plastered on his face. Then came a shocking revelation that rattled the foundations of the competition. The truth of the challenges was darker than anyone had imagined, exposing the ruthless nature of ambition itself. Gasps filled the crowd. The energy charged the air like static. What does success mean when built on the backs of the struggling? Richard Hawthorne's unyielding exterior began to crack as he watched the effects of his greed unfold on the screen. As Sofia stood at the crossroads of her journey, the haunting question loomed. Could a Maid's daughter redefine success amidst this chaos? Could she not only save her dreams, but shatter the illusion of privilege itself? The audience held its breath, eager to witness the true strength of integrity and love against a world cluttered with illusions of power. Sofia stared out at the audience, a wave of emotions crashing over her. The murmurs swirled around her like a tempest, mixing disbelief and intrigue. Life had brought her to this moment, where every decision could change her fate. With her heart pounding, she felt her mother's unseen presence, a steadying force. Maria had always been her anchor. Now, Sofia needed to summon that same strength. Her competitors surrounded her, glimmers of assuredness in their eyes, their designer clothes lending them an air of superiority. But beneath that fabric, they were just as human as she was. Maybe they had wealth, but Sofia was armed with a truth harder than gold: the grit of her life, the love for her mother, and the dreams that danced in her heart. I refuse to be a pawn in their game, Sofia whispered to herself. The shadows of doubt crept in, but she shook them off, remembering every sacrifice her mother had made. The sight of Maria scrubbing floors late into the night flickered vividly in her mind, each stroke fueled by a hope that was palpable. She had to rise above it all. The next challenge was announced, and the stakes intensified. It was a task designed to test both wits and artistry, meant for the elite, not a Maid's daughter. As the countdown began, Sofia felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. With no time to dwell on the impossibility, she took a deep breath and stepped into her zone. Each movement felt like a dance, a rhythm that synced with her heartbeat. Suddenly, the lights flickered, catching her off guard. For a split second, an anxiety-filled silence blanketed the crowd. Richard's sharp gaze was glued to her, an eagle watching its prey. He was the embodiment of everything she stood against, yet somehow, watching him made her brave. She was no longer invisible. She was Sofia, a force to be reckoned with. As the challenge unfolded, she found a new rhythm. Each brush of color brought clarity, transforming her anxiety into vibrant strokes that told her story. Voices in the crowd began to shift. Whispers of surprise as the audience began to realize that this girl, with grit born from hard work, was not to be underestimated. Then came another surprise twist. Her painting was chosen to be auctioned off, the proceeds benefiting those affected by the cruel nature of wealth. Hope swelled in her chest. She wasn't just competing, she was making a statement. Those who mocked her would witness the power of her roots. But with every rise comes a fall. Richard's voice echoed in her mind, disdain dripping from his words about the worth of a Maid's daughter. Could she truly affect change, or was this just a fleeting moment of hope? As the challenge drew to a close, her resolve solidified. There might be a chance to turn the tables. The final decision loomed. Everyone was on edge, anticipation hanging in the air like a charged electrical current. Maria, sitting silently at the edge of the crowd, held her breath, praying her daughter would find clarity in this chaos. As the moment unfolded, tears glimmered in Sofia's eyes, not of defeat, but of realization. She was fighting for more than herself. She was fighting for all those who felt helpless. Could she truly challenge Richard's empire head-on? Would her battle for integrity and victory leave a legacy for others to follow? As the applause crashed over her like a wave, Sofia took a moment to soak it in. The audience was still, and then, "Wait, I have something to say," she called out, raising her hand for silence. What could she reveal that would change everything? The air thickened with anticipation as all eyes turned to her, ready for something extraordinary. Would this be Sofia's moment of truth? Sofia's heart raced as every eye in the room fixed upon her. She took a deep breath, the air thick with expectation. Her mind raced, every thought vying for space. She could feel the weight of everybody's hopes and fears rest on her shoulders. This was bigger than her. This was for every person who had been made to feel small, who had been dismissed because of their background. I want to say something important," she stammered, gathering her thoughts like strands of delicate string. This competition has been about more than social stature or wealth. It's about what we can do for each other, for those who are oftentimes overlooked. I'm not just a Maid's daughter. I'm a daughter of dreams. I stand here because of my mother's sacrifices, not despite them. A collective shift rippled through the audience. Murmurs of agreement began to rise, threading through the crowd like a lifeline. Richard's expression darkened, as if clouds had crept over a clear sky. This wasn't how he expected the event to unfold. I want my painting to represent the struggle and strength of every person like my mother, Sofia continued, her voice growing stronger. And I want the proceeds to go directly to those who need it the most, people who have worked hard but are still invisible to society. Something magical happened. The applause that had once been a polite ripple grew into a roaring wave. The warmth of hope washed over her, infusing her with newfound courage. The electricity in the room shifted. She was no longer just a contender. She had become a voice for the voiceless. But again, doubt crept into her mind. What if Richard managed to dominate this stage once more? What if this moment of purpose became another fleeting dream? She had already carved a path, but now the real fight was to hold her ground against those who would undermine her passion. Then Richard spoke, cutting through the rising waves of support. Sophia, that's an admirable sentiment. But do you truly think a little charity will change the world? His voice dripped with condescension. The poor have always been, well, poor. They need more than just art to survive. The crowd faltered, caught between their admiration for Sophia and Richard's cynical insistence. She felt their eyes waver, but she had come too far to let fear win. No, Richard, Sophia replied, her voice firm and unwavering. You don't understand the real power of art or compassion. It's about inspiration, connection, and hope. It's about turning whispers into a chorus. The audience hung onto her every word, breaths held in unison. Richard's smirk faltered. She had struck a chord. Today, it's not just about who wins or loses, Sophia declared, her heart racing with each passing second. It's about acknowledging every story, every struggle. I refuse to be defined by you or anyone else. The crowd erupted again, cheers blending with applause. Sophia felt that the rough edges of doubt were beginning to smooth. There was strength in vulnerability, a power in her honesty. There was something profound in standing in her truth, and she realized her dreams were valid. As the tumult of voices enveloped her, Sophia felt a sense of purpose sharper than any brushstroke could create. But as she glanced at Richard, his icy stare told her that this wasn't he. Over point one final challenge loomed ahead, and so did the consequences of her boldness. What would Richard do next? Would he seek to snatch this moment away from her? As the noise began to die down, Sophia felt the air tighten, thick with uncertainty and tension. Had she truly begun a fight that would shape their futures? All I wanted was to be seen, she whispered softly, yet firmly. Now, steps ahead, would she be able to withstand the fallout? How far is she willing to go? Richard sneered, his voice echoing across the stage. This wasn't just about winning an auction or a contest. This was a battle for something far greater: her dignity, her mother's legacy, and the dreams rooted deep in her heart. And now, she had to prepare for whatever was coming next. Sophia's heart thundered in her chest as Richard's words hung in the air, like a dark cloud threatening rain. The crowd's cheers had lifted her, but his challenge felt like a punch to the gut. How far was she willing to go? Did she even know? Art is not just a pretty picture, Richard, she said, her voice more steady than she felt. It's a reflection of who we are, who we can become. People are more than their circumstances. With each beat of her heart, she found a rhythm, a pulse of defiance coursing through her veins. Richard shrugged, his eyes glinting coldly. Interesting narrative, Sophia. But the reality is money talks. What you're proposing, it's valiant, but naive. The audience stirred, their energy dipping slightly, uncertainty creeping in. She could almost hear their thoughts. Was she just dreaming? But Sophia refused to back down. If nobody believes in art's power to change lives, then what is the point? I'm not just here to sell a painting. I'm here to ignite change. A wave of energy surged through her, fueling her words. The tension in the air shifted once more. She felt the audience leaning in, like flowers turning toward the sun. Hope ignited in small smiles, understanding gleaming in their eyes. Art can create bridges, she pressed on, her gaze finding familiar faces among the crowd. If a piece of paint on canvas can translate struggle and triumph, then we are already starting a movement, a ripple effect. We can show those who think they are invisible that they matter. The applause returned, stronger than before. Chants of Sophia, Sophia, filled the space. But Richard wasn't finished. And what about the cash? How will your dream feed the hungry or find housing for the homeless? Sophia felt her pulse quicken again. He was right in some respects. The idealism of art alone wouldn't fix society's deep-rooted issues. But standing on this stage, she understood that what she was fighting for was hope itself. If I can spark a conversation, then maybe it's a step in the right direction, she admitted, the vulnerability creeping back. Some may call it naive, but I'm betting on humanity. Sometimes that's all we have hope. Richard rolled his eyes, his smirk replaced by a glower. Betting on humanity won't pay the bills. Maybe not, she shot back. But what is the point of wealth without community? Without connection? Wealth is meaningless without shared responsibility. Your way hasn't worked. You're dedicated to tearing people down, but I'm here to build them up. The atmosphere in a room hit a breaking point, the crowd roaring in approval. Sofia couldn't believe the energy flowing through her like a surge of electricity. Every cheer and clap fueled her fire, twisting her fear into determination. Then came a voice from the back, breaking through the din. She's right. When we lift each other, we all rise. Our worth isn't defined by our wealth. It was an older gentleman, his voice steady, bold. Sofia's heart swelled. She looked around and saw others nodding, smiles blooming. But the seeds of doubt lingered. Was it enough? Would hope alone carry her forward? Richard's fiery gaze indicated he still had more to say. In that moment, she braced herself, knowing the war was far from over. He stepped forward, hands clasped behind his back, his demeanor dangerously calm. Fine, then let us raise the stakes. If your art can raise that kind of awareness, let us prove it. I challenge you to an auction duel, but with a twist. An auction duel? What was he plotting? Her stomach dropped as curiosity mixed with apprehension. Would this be the chance she needed, or would it be the very trap that could undo everything? What are the terms? Sofia asked, her voice steady, although she felt everything shifting beneath her. Richard grinned, a glint in his eye. If you win, I'll double the proceeds to your cause. If you lose, well, you'll find out. Suddenly, the stakes were higher than she anticipated. Would she take that leap? The crowd watched in anticipation, the tension palpable, and Sofia stood at the precipice of her future. What would her answer be? Sofia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every gaze on her. This wasn't just about art anymore. It was about everything she believed in. Richard was right about one thing: she could no longer hide behind her idealism. The stakes had escalated, and she knew that her decision would ripple through the lives of many. I accept your challenge, she declared, her voice steady. The crowd erupted into cheers, a wave of energy sweeping over her. But inside, doubt gnawed at her. What had she just agreed to? Richard's smirk widened, a predator sensing vulnerability. Great, he said, his tone dripping with mock enthusiasm. Let us make this interesting. You'll have 1 week to create a new piece of art that encapsulates your vision. The auction will take place here next Saturday. That gives you plenty of time, and I assure you, I'll make my bid a memorable one. As Richard stepped back into the shadows, the crowd's applause echoed in the air, loud and overwhelming. Sofia felt buoyed, yet the reality of the week ahead settled over her like a heavy fog. The enormity of her commitment struck her. This wasn't just a fight for herself. It was for everyone who had ever felt sidelined, overlooked, or marginalized. The heart of her community depended on her success. Sofia left the stage with a mix of exhilaration and dread swirling inside her. Backstage, her mind raced like a runaway train. She had moments of clarity amid the chaos, thoughts catching like light in a dark room. She needed to channel the emotions. Everyone felt the struggles, the hopes, the dreams. She would create a piece that wouldn't just be sold. It would be a voice, a rallying cry. Later, at home in her small studio apartment, she surrounded herself with canvases, paints, and a whirlwind of inspiration. The walls were adorned with her past works, tales of her journey captured in hues and strokes. They whispered encouragement, reminding her of who she was and why she painted. But as the night stretched on, the doubt crept back in. What if she couldn't deliver? What if her passion didn't translate into something powerful enough to win? The fear clutched her heart, choking her creativity. She paced, lungs tight, mind racing. Could she really pull this off? She grabbed a brush and faced a blank canvas. The stark white felt intimidating. Maybe she was in over her head. But then she remembered the older gentleman's voice, the way it had ignited a spark in the crowd. The power of art to lift each other. She whispered to herself, turning the fear into fuel. Each stroke of the brush began to find purpose. She envisioned the faces of the people she aimed to represent, their pain, their resilience, and their triumphs. As the days blurred into nights, Sofia poured herself into the canvas. She lost track of time, losing herself in the rhythm of creativity. But with each passing moment, Richard's challenge loomed like a shadow over her masterpiece. Would it be enough? The morning of the auction arrived all too soon. The atmosphere crackled with excitement and nerves. Sofia stood before the canvas she had poured her heart into, left wondering if it could move the crowd as it had moved her. As the auction began, Richard took his place at the front, his presence magnetic and imposing. His eyes were sharp as he surveyed the crowd, the confidence emanating from him palpable. Then Sofia felt the energy shift. She stepped forward, the crowd falling silent, anticipation humming in the air. This moment was finally here. This was the test. But as she prepared to unveil her work, a familiar voice echoed in her mind. When we lift each other, we all rise. What if this moment was about more than just her? With a deep breath, she pulled the cover off the canvas, revealing her heart on display. Gasps filled the room, and for a split second, she dared to dream. But would the crowd rise to her truth, or would Richard's shadow eclipse her hope? The moment of revelation hung in the air, holding its breath, waiting for the answer. Would she find victory, or would everything she fought for slip away? The cover slipped away, and Sofia's heart raced as the crowd took in the vibrant colors sprawled across her canvas. Each brush stroke told a story of struggle, resilience, and the beauty of the human spirit. The image depicted a sprawling tree, its roots digging deep into the earth while its branches reached toward the sky. Faces emerged from the bark, each uniquely marked by the trials of life, yet entwined in the strength of solidarity. Gasps echoed through the room, some soft and incredulous, others reverent. Sofia felt a wave of warmth wash over her. The expression on her mother's face, standing in the back with tears glistening in her eyes, filled Sofia with hope. This was it. She had channeled the voices of her community, transforming their essence into art right before their eyes. But then Richard's laughter rang out, sharp and condescending, cutting through the emotional moment like glass. "How quaint," he declared, arms crossed confidently. "A glorified tree? You really think this will compete with $1 million masterpiece?" The crowd stirred, uncertainty creeping into their awe. Sofia's heart sank, but she stood her ground. She refused to let him undermine her. "Art is more than price tags and prestige," she called out, her voice rising over the murmurs. "It's about connection. It's about truth. This is who we are." She glanced around, searching faces in the sea of doubt lingering after Richard's words. A few heads nodded, but she didn't know if it was enough. There were still a few moments left before bids started rolling in. Could she hold the crowd's attention? Was her art enough? Richard stepped forward, waving his hand dismissively. "Isn't it sweet to think it's about the message? But you forget one thing. In the end, this is a business. What is beautiful might not sell." He flashed a smug smile, and she felt the weight of its absurdity. But motivation sparked anew within her. Sofia locked eyes with her mother, sending a silent message that they were in this together. "Let us see what the audience truly values," she said, turning to face the crowd again. "Every bid today isn't just about wealth. It's about belief. It's about lifting each other up." A murmuring wave of agreement rippled through the crowd. She felt it a surge of solidarity. They were beginning to understand. Her piece was a voice for them all. It was their story conquered but not silenced. Then, a hand shot up from the back. "I'll bid." A voice rang out, a young woman in vibrant, hand-painted clothing. Nervous excitement swept through the crowd, and more hands raised alongside her. Each new bid felt like a lifeline, as if her community was rallying together. Richard's expression changed, the smirk fading slightly, replaced by surprise and then anger. He stepped back, his posture tightening. The stakes were shifting to as the bids climbed. Sofia's heart soared. Each number echoed her determination. But Richard, never one to back down easily, suddenly leaned in, whispering something to the auctioneer, and the tension in the air thickened. Sofia glanced again at her mother, who managed a proud, knowing smile. The battle wasn't just with Richard anymore. It was about what the community needed. And then, the question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Could they push past the glitter of wealth and choose meaning over money? Sofia clenched her jaw, drawing strength from the faces around her. She was determined to show them the true value of their collective spirit, even if it meant facing Richard head dash on. As the bidding continued, she sensed the atmosphere shift again, another echo of desperation and passion colliding. The climax was nearing. Would they rise together, or would Richard's influence swoop in, trying to shove her message back into the corner? The answer awaited, crackling with excitement and dread as the auction neared its peak. Sofia's heart thundered as more hands shot up, each bid feeling like a small victory, a testament to her community's strength. She glanced at the auctioneer, who was caught up in the momentum, calling out numbers with enthusiasm she had only seen in the most electric moments of her art classes. Her breath hitched with every increase, a rhythm tied to the hope that surged through the crowd. But just as the excitement built, Richard's sharp voice cut through again, louder now, more aggressive. "What do you think you're doing? This isn't a charity event." His tone dripped with disdain, making several heads droop, casting shadows of doubt. She could see it in their faces, her own friends and neighbors, beginning to falter under his imposing aura. Sofia took a deep breath, steeling herself against the tide of fear that threatened to wash over her. She stepped forward, the wooden floor creaking under her weight, as if echoing her determination. "I invite anyone who believes in the power of our stories to stand with me. Art isn't just for the elite. It's for the souls who live and breathe every day." Richard huffed, looking around, but the murmurs of protest were growing louder now. Encouraged, Sofia forged on. "This tree is our tree. Those faces are the faces of our dreams. And it's time we claim our narrative." Across the room, she spotted an older gentleman with graying hair, jaw set in resolve. He raised his hand. "I'll bid." His voice was strong, a rallying cry that pierced the atmosphere. The crowd surged forward, hands shooting into the air, voices filling the air with shouts of support. "Me too. I'll bid." Another cried, and then another. With each new bid, Sofia felt a fresh wave of energy, every number a declaration, every shout a thread pulling them closer as a unit. But Richard wasn't finished. He surged forward, glaring at the crowd. "Let me remind you, this isn't about sentimentality. You're wasting your time." His attempts to weaken their resolve only fueled their fire. The auctioneer hesitated now, glancing at Richard and back at the escalating frenzy of the crowd. Sofia's palms were sweaty, her heart racing. Could they really do this? She focused on her canvas, the vibrant colors glowing brilliantly under the lights, each hopeful face beckoning her to keep going. When Richard, seeing the tide turn, clenched his fists, Sofia sensed the tipping point. "Richard, why don't you show us what you stand for? If you truly believe this art lacks value, why not put your money where your mouth is?" The crowd gasped, a collective inhale, as anticipation soared. Sofia had shifted the game. Richard's facade cracked, eyes darting. Even the auctioneer paused, sensing the electricity in the air, a challenge hung between them. The crowd was watching, and for once, Sofia felt the underdog power rising, the adrenaline fueling her voice. Let us stop hiding behind wealth and prestige. Who here will bid because it moves them? Because it matters? In that moment, everything hinged on Richard and his response. Would he double down, or would he back away? The room buzzed with potential, Momentary silence swirling into a loud heartbeat that echoed in Sofia's ears. The tension crescendoed as Richard stared back, seemingly weighing the choices against the hidden stakes. It was a question whispered through the crowd. Would he let her win, or would he fight back, even at the cost of his own pride? She held her breath, waiting for the final revelation, as the stakes rose higher than anyone could have imagined. What would Richard do next? Richard's gaze locked on Sofia, uncertainty flickering behind his steely eyes. The weight of the room pressed on him. It was as if the air itself had thickened, holding its breath, waiting for a response. The moment dragged, stretching like a rubber band, teetering on the edge of rupture. Finally, he chuckled, a low, dismissive sound that reverberated through the room. You think your little show means anything? He straightened his posture, a confident facade slipping back into place. Art isn't just about emotion. It's about money. You want my bid? Then let us raise the stakes. Gasps spread through the crowd. Richard's words felt like a blow, and yet they also ignited an even fiercer determination in Sofia. She refused to let his arrogance snuff out the spark of hope they were fanning into flame. Fine, Richard. Let us raise them. She shot back, her voice rising as adrenaline coursed through her veins. If you want to prove your point, then bid. This is about more than just your dollars. It's about what we represent. Richard leaned forward, his brow furrowing, as if the thought of actually putting a price on something beyond his comprehension startled him. The crowd quickly caught on, an undercurrent of excitement sweeping through them again. They weren't just bidding on a painting, no. This was a statement, a fight for their place in a world that often dismissed them. 10 million. Richard finally barked. It was a number so absurd, so inflated, that it sent ripples of disbelief throughout the room. Sofia's breath caught in her throat. Her heart raced, not just from fear, but from an unexpected feeling of exhilaration. This was a chance, and so much more than she had anticipated. But she had to act quickly. 20 million. The words flew out before she could second-guess herself. The crowd erupted in cheers and gasps alike. Even Richard looked taken aback, momentarily speechless. It was a bold move, a shot across the bow of his towering fortress of wealth. Shouts of "Go, Sofia!" echoed in her ears. Friends who had been ambivalent moments ago were now fully behind her, their voices a symphony of support. She could feel the momentum shifting, like the tide rolling in, bolstered by the power of shared dreams. 30 million, Richard spat, his face reddening as he fought to maintain control. Each bid felt like a punch in the gut, but Sofia refused to flinch. I'll go to 50, she shouted with newfound confidence, the thrill of the moment electrifying her. The crowd went wild. Uncertainty vanished, and hope flared bright. This wasn't just about a painting anymore. This was a battle for recognition, for pride, for every person who had ever felt overlooked. The auctioneer's voice trembled with excitement, struggling to keep up with the escalating bids. Richard's confidence began to waver. He looked at the people around him, slowly realizing the tide was against him. Their voices rang louder, drowning out his wealth and arrogance. What had started as an embarrassing spectacle was morphing into a transformative moment for everyone present. But then Richard's eyes turned cold, a glint of rage stirring behind them. You think you can outbid me? He snapped, fury radiating from him. A sudden chill swept through the room, silencing everyone. Sofia stood firm. She had stepped into this battle with her spirit. But just as Richard opened his mouth to respond, a familiar voice unexpectedly broke through the tension. Enough, Richard. It was Sofia's mother, stepping boldly into the spotlight. The silence hung over them, heavy with questions. What new revelations would she share? Would this change everything? The audience leaned in closer, anticipation thickening the air as Sofia's heart raced once more. What secrets lay hidden in this moment? Sofia's heart pounded in her chest. Her mother's presence felt like both a lighthouse in the storm and a flickering candle in a draft. Here was the woman who had always fought for her, stepping boldly into the fray. and Sofia could sense that this moment could turn the tide for her, if only she could keep her nerves intact. "Mom?" Sofia's voice trembled, but she quickly steadied herself. This was not the time for uncertainty. The cacophony in the room fell silent, all eyes now locked on her mother. Her mom, Margaret, held herself with a regal poise. "Richard," she began, her voice cutting through the tension like a hot knife through butter. "You're playing a dangerous game. This isn't just about money. It's about people." Richard laughed, the sound low and mocking. "What would you know about people, Margaret? You've spent decades cleaning up after the wealthy. Your insight is enough." She interjected, her voice rising with authority. There was something ferocious in her gaze. "I know the stories you've buried under layers of cash. You think you can reduce art, beauty, and spirit to mere numbers? You're wrong. Today is about recognition, and I'm here to tell you that you don't own this space anymore." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Eyes flicked from Margaret to Sofia, confusion dissolving into curiosity and admiration. Richard's bravado began to crack as he glanced nervously at the audience, sensing the tide turning. "Mom, please," Sofia whispered, unsure whether her mother's intervention was wise or reckless. "Shoo, darling," Margaret said, not breaking her focus on Richard. "This is our moment. You fought too hard to allow someone like him to underestimate you." "Very noble of you, Margaret," Richard sneered, but the venom had faded. He stood firm, yet somewhere beneath the bravado, uncertainty seeped in. "But your words won't change my bid." "Maybe not," Margaret replied, her voice steady. "But they can change how we view ourselves. Art is not a commodity. It's a bridge, a way for us to connect, to stand up for what we believe in." Richard paused, and that brief moment of hesitation felt like an eternity. The crowd took a collective breath, the words resonating deep within them. They began to share glances, a silent conversation sparking amidst the swarm. "Let us change the narrative," someone shouted from the back. The room ignited with a chorus of voices, rallying behind Sofia and her mother. Cheers flowed like a wave crashing against Richard's wall of investment. Taking a daring step forward, Margaret raised her voice over the clamor. "Let us show him that we're not just renters in this world. We own our dreams." Sofia felt a fire boil in her chest. "I'll match it 100 million," she shouted, voice ringing clear as the crowd gasped in disbelief. Her declaration felt electric, and for a heartbeat, time stopped. Richard's expression morphed from confidence to confusion. He looked younger, suddenly stripped of his power. "Do you really think you can keep the charade up?" he seethed, veins darkening in his temples, as if he could physically intimidate the crowd into submission. "We're not charades, Richard," Sofia countered, her voice unwavering. "We're real. We exist." The audience erupted again, and in that moment, something shifted. It wasn't merely a bid. It was a rebellion. Rich or poor, everyone felt the energy soaring, the shared dream of a victory inching closer. But under the surface of the celebration, a darker shadow loomed. What would Richard do next? Would he retreat or retaliate? As Sofia stood tall, breaths mingling with the ecstatic cheers around her, she caught a glimpse of Richard's face, angry, betrayed, yet somehow desperate. The lingering question hung thick in the air, echoing an unspoken dread. What was he willing to sacrifice to win this battle? And as that question settled in her mind, Sofia couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just the end of a bidding war, but the prologue to a much larger confrontation. Richard's eyes narrowed like a predator sizing up its prey. Somewhere, deep in the cold recesses of his mind, he felt the surge of panic, but he masked it with an arrogant facade. "You think this is about your feeble attempts at art? You're playing a dangerous game, girl." The audience bristled at his words, the tension electrifying the air as they braced for what would come next. Sofia held her breath, fear and hope battling for dominance in her heart. Richard's smirk returned, sharp as a knife. "Let us raise the stakes further then. I challenge you to a final test, an art battle. A live demonstration of skill, heart, and creativity, right here before everyone. If you win, I'll double the proceeds to your cause. If you lose, well, let us just say your mother's sacrifices won't save you." Gasps of disbelief washed over the crowd, but Sofia stood firm, her voice steady. "I accept." The crowd erupted, cheers mingling with whispers of disbelief. Richard was cornered now, and he knew it. The fight had become larger than just him and Sofia. It echoed across the lives of everyone gathered. She wasn't just fighting for her vision, but for her community, for all the dreams crushed under the weight of arrogance. "Let us do this," Sofia smiled, determination hardening her resolve. As she set up her easel, she could feel her mother's encouraging presence radiating from the back of the crowd. With each stroke of the brush, vibrant colors came to life. The canvas transformed, dancing with energy as Sofia poured her heart into it. Rich greens for growth, deep blues for hope, and golden yellows reflecting the warmth of love and community. Richard hovered beside her, his own canvas blank, a pitiful representation of his greed. He was more concerned with overpowering her than creating something meaningful. As he painted, it became apparent that his colors clashed, and chaos erupted on his canvas, a washed-out attempt at grandeur, devoid of connection. Sofia felt the moment a shift, a clarity. She remembered every late night with her mother, every whispered encouragement. The essence of those struggles fueled her. Before long, the applause began to swell. It resonated through the room, lifting her spirit. Time ticked down, and Sofia stayed focused, weaving her dreams into the artwork. Richard, in a fit of frustration, began slinging paint everywhere, the chaos further irritating the crowd. They began to murmur, confusion giving way to realization. With seconds left, Sofia stepped back and surveyed her creation, a resplendent display of unity that transcended barriers. The faces of her community interwoven among vibrant images of a tree standing tall, a beacon of strength. The moment the timer hit, the room was engulfed in silence, the audience captivated. Sofia's heart raced as they exchanged glances, mouths ajar in reverence. Richard, realizing the energy had shifted, dropped his brush and whirled to the audience, desperation flaring in his eyes. "You're being deceived. This is just an emotional ploy." But Sofia didn't flinch. She stepped toward the crowd, gathering their energy and projecting her voice. "This isn't just art. It's our legacy. It represents every one of us who has fought against the shadows of privilege." The resonance of conviction in her words sparked a wave of agreement. Before long, she could see heads nodding, warmth filling the air as the people responded to the resonating truth. Encouraged, she pressed on, passion flooding through her veins. Art has power. It breaks barriers and builds bridges. Together, we can start a movement. The applause grew louder, infusing the room with electric energy. Richard's eyes blazed in disbelief, but he realized the tide had turned. He was losing control. "Let us vote," someone shouted from the back. Instinctively, hands shot up around the room, anger mingling with pride at the transparent unfairness laid bare before them. Richard stood in shock, apprehension gripping him as the crowd united, chanting Sofia's name, drawing strength from her vision. "Sofia, Sofia," echoed through the auditorium, the strength of her community propelling her forward. Richard's confidence began unraveling, his face reddening as the very support he had once relied on faded away. The crowd had chosen a consensus, bursting forth from the fear of isolation, from the pain of negligence. They had found their voice, led by Sofia. As the votes settled, the atmosphere swelled with joy. Richard clutched the edges of his sketch, disgraced and isolated as the cheers of the crowd surged forth again. "Your time is over, Richard," Sofia proclaimed boldly, stepping forward with renewed ferocity. "It's time we redefine what success really means." The final blow came as the auctioneer announced the winner. The art representing the strength, resilience, and unity of our community goes to Sofia. The cheers roared like a thunderstorm, echoing against high walls and reverberating through every heart. Sofia turned to Richard, her voice steady. This is what true victory looks like. A united community, lifting each other to new heights. Tears streamed down Maria's face as she rushed forward, enveloping Sofia in a warm embrace, the culmination of dreams realized. In that moment, Richard realized he had lost everything: power, control, the audience's appreciation. Crawling his way back to his pedestal had only exposed him for who he truly was. His eyes darkened as the reality settled in a sobering reflection against a pair of radiant dreams. As the moment of transformation expanded, the air thickened with dreams born anew, ignited by Sofia's unwavering spirit. The future tugged at their sleeves like an old friend ready to guide them toward new horizons. And as they combined their voices, the legacy of one Maid's daughter carved itself into the legacy of many. Amidst joy and heartache stood a movement crafted from love, woven tightly by the threads of compassion, soaring ever closer to the sky. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exciting stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spark hope in more hearts. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this breathtaking journey. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions.